Hello, friends. Welcome back to Penny for the Soul. So, today's episode is a lovely interview with Sudhir Kakar, the noted psychoanalyst and author. The good part is that Sudhir and his wife Katharina live very close to our home in a Goan village. It's just 750 meters away. So I was so lucky. I would you believe it? I just cycled to Sudhir's home to interview him, a few days back. So we spoke about Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, about Rudyard Kipling, because Sudhir has written this lovely book, The Kipling File. One of his latest books to 2018. It's a faction or historical novel on the life of Rudyard Kipling. So we spoke about Kipling, and we also spoke about Indian sexuality, on which Sudhir is an expert, a noted expert. So sit back and enjoy this, short interview. So good afternoon, Sudhir.
Good afternoon.
So happy to finally get a chance to opportunity to interview you. So I'll kick off straight away with the questions. The first one really is some lines that have been attributed to you in a book by Kumar, 2008. I'll quote: "Gandhi is the Indian icon. There is no one who matches him. I would agree with Einstein when he said that posterity would find it difficult to believe such a man lived on this planet." Unquote. So while this is clearly the popular belief in many parts of India, there is a large section of Indians who seem to deride Gandhiji and put him down. So how do you explain this thought process, this negative thought process?
I think that is the fate of every person who is seen to be great, that he has to be put down also. And it's okay, because Gandhi is not a perfect person. He had his own problems, difficulties, and but he was a person who put those difficulties out into the open. So he is the most honest person, at least, if he is not the greatest in it, because he had no difficulty in sharing all his what people would call oh my God kind of thing. So but that every human being has these, there's no doubt about it. There's no perfect human being at all.
Sudhir, you have studied Tagore's life, Rabindranath Tagore's life also. And when we speak about the Nobel laureate, words from it, this famous poem of his, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, come to mind immediately. So how far do you think the present socio-political situation in our country has travelled away from Tagore's philosophy?
I am afraid very far. Tagore was one of the main things about Tagore was that he was not a nationalist at all. In fact, he was against nationalism, and one of his problems with Gandhi was that he thought Gandhi was a nationalist, and not a human being of the world, person of the world. So we have travelled very, very far away from him, that Tagore wouldn't have been that happy with the kind of muscular nationalism which is wanted, portrayed by many people in India today.
Sudhir, the Kipling File, and I want you to show the book. Yeah, there it is. This I enjoyed reading this book of yours, the Kipling File. Maybe you can just show it a little more. Yeah, that's it. So a lovely historical novel, what do they call it? Faction also, yeah. So it has required a lot of research, as one can see, and you've been complimented for that. So can you explain to us the research process and how long it took the entire process to really research and write this book, and also one aspect of Kipling's life that intrigued you the most?
The research process, in fact, average of all my books is about 3 years. So, I like the research process a lot, because you start to learn things about a person, about the times, because you have to, to be very true to the person's life. You have to know, for instance, how was the person called by friends, not Rudyard, Rudy, what would you call him? So that you have to find out. What did he eat for breakfast? What is the normal breakfast? So all those small things which contribute to the life of a biography takes a long time. What intrigued me about, this book was mostly about young Kipling. And what intrigued me most was actually how far Kipling traveled from his youth. Because he became such an imperialist in his later life, and yet he was very, very sympathetic to India and Indians when he was here, when he was young. He would go out to be with Indians, nights in Afim Khanas and all kind of things. And was always wrote very sympathetically about Indians. But as he became more and more famous, literature, Nobel Prize, became more and more imperialist in English. So that changed later on. That surprised me, that he changed so much.
That is what intrigued you the most.
Yeah.
This change in his personality.
That's right.
Interesting. It's a lovely book. So, people who have not read it must pick up a copy. Yeah. See, so you have, Sudhir, you have researched Indian sexuality very closely and written several books on this subject. So I wanted to ask you, given the fact that so many Indian men, especially migrant labor, are forced to live far away from their wives and families. We see it even in our Goa, you see it all the time, and it strikes me. Do you think this is leading to a large portion of the Indian population being sexually suppressed? And how unhealthy is this for our society?
Difficult question, because the sexual suppression is also inside, even when they are living at home. There's not that much sexual freedom, but of course it is much better to have a sexual partner than to be out and not only look for, but not to find one that easily, and that doesn't certainly do good things to health, because as I think one famous psychoanalyst, Wilhelm Reich, in the 1920s said that to be sexually happy is to be happy. Nobody who's sexually happy steals or robs. Life is as simple as that. So sexual unhappiness does have a great on your health, mental health also.
So there's a lot of negativity that can come through that suppression.
Yeah.
And also violence.
Then it is expressed through violence.
Violence and all that we see across India. Now modern Indian youth, largely living in metro India, seem to be more open about sexual relationships than, say, generations 40 years back. So does this signal a coming of age of Indian sexuality?
It certainly is. You're quite right about much more open. How much that is in practice, I'm not very sure. There is some, but not as much as one would think it is. For the main reason that the modern young Indian, as in the older generation is still very, very much part of the family. And for the girls at least, the men it is easier to get to be known that you are sexually promiscuous or sexually open is not only that it hurts their own prospects of marriage and all, but also their families of younger sisters etc. because that comes to be attached to that. उस लड़की के तो वो तो बहुत है उसकी बहनों का भी होगा कुछ ना कुछ. So they have to be still much more careful in practice, but in thoughts and in what you can see and feel etc. There is much more. Yes.
Both you and your wife, Katharina, have settled down in a Goan village for 20 years now. And so which aspect of Goan village life, appeals to you the most and why?
Most appeals is one is the still persisting friendliness of Goan people, that they are much more open to strangers living in their midst. It is changing. There is of course Goans who do not welcome this, but there is still a basic friendliness which appeals. And of course living in Goan village is the quiet, not to be in a polluted atmosphere like Delhi, Bombay, not to have all the time horns of cars all the time. So the noise pollution and the other pollution are the ones which is much more.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Sudhir, I'm going to ask you this final question about how present day psychoanalysts in India are competing with, say, psychiatrists and clinical psychologists.
Yeah, okay. So, all three are thriving because there has been a very, very big difference in the acceptance of mental problems and mental illness. Because earlier it was either you are pagal or you are healthy. There was no kind of differentiation in between. When I started practice in 1970, there were 2 psychoanalysts in Delhi, and now there are more than 30. All qualified, and they all of them have full practices. So when anyone wants somebody to be referred to an analyst, they all say we are full. So it has really boomed. I imagine it's the same with the psychiatrists and with clinical psychologists. The difference, of course, is that psychiatrists are really iatrists. Iatrist means medicine. So they don't know and they don't get taught at all about the psyche. It's more the iatry which they learn, which is fine because then you look at the mental problems through brain processes and how we can take out some serotonin and whatever the brain needs, the brain chemistry. The clinical psychologists are also not, they are much more of the testing in hospitals, etc. They are the most organized profession. So there is still a huge need for all three, I think, in India. And I think it is happening because of the change in Indian attitudes towards mental illness.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Sudhir.
Okay.
Thank you so much.